Welcome to the July 2021 edition of Hunt Camp Mail. This is going to be a really long edition this month because I received some very complex questions and, I have to make up for the whole Swamp Doggy fiasco last month. So grab a few cold ones, sit back, get a comfortable seat, and relax because this is going to be a long Hunt Camp Mail episode. This July has probably been the hottest month in California in my lifetime. Locally where I live, we had about 11 straight days above 110 degrees and about 5 consecutive days over 115 degrees, with a couple of those days, topping out at 118 degrees. I can't even remember a time when it was under 100 degrees. I mean, it's literally been 100 degrees plus every day for over 2 months now. My buddy drove through Death Valley on his way back to Pahrump, Nevada, and the thermometer at the Furnace Creek Visitor Center read 135 degrees. Check this out. In case you don't know, that 135 degree temperature reading is the highest temperature ever recorded on this planet. It even reached 121 degrees in Canada. That's right, it reached freaking 121 degrees in Canada. This heat wave and drought are not fake news, my friends. At my own business, I was sending my employees home at midday with a full day's pay because it's just unethical to put them to work out in full protective gear in that kind of heat. I'm worried about our quail and chukar populations, if they're going to survive through this summer. And I have a feeling that a lot of hunting zones locally are going to be on fire when hunting season opens, just like last year. I've never seen a drought and heat waves this bad, and I don't think anyone has out west. Also, my 338 Win Mag video just didn't seem to ruffle as many feathers as I thought it would. I figured that the Elmer Keith fanboys and the high BC bullet crowd would absolutely roast me over that video, but it was actually generally well received. It was a fun video because I've loaded and used all those cartridges, and I've struggled with their usefulness and utility many times myself. So it was good to be able to lay out my argument for you with that video. And lastly, I want to apologize for letting my cousin Swamp Doggy do the last Hunt Camp Mail. His advice on spotlighting, hunting out of season, gut shooting animals, baiting deer, and eyewear were just totally out of line. I really need to suppress that side of the family a little bit more in the future. Well, let's get to some of July's mail. Our first question is from Randy from Chino Valley, Arizona. Randy wrote, I want to develop a load for my 30-06. I want to shoot Barnes bullets for hunting because I don't like the idea of eating lead particles in the meat. I have read that a good place to start with reloading is to start 10% down from maximum load. Is that your experience also? Well, Randy, I was also sick of picking out chunks of lead from my burgers and sausage. Shooting a deer with a TSX means that the animal runs a few yards, before it dies instead of just goes bang flop. It's worth it to me. As a hunter, I hate meat damage, and I hate biting into bits of metal and ingesting lead. On to your question as to where to start the load development with 30-06. As you pointed out, the old 10% below book max is a pretty good place to start, in my opinion. Just watch that first round that you shoot closely for pressure signs to make sure you're well below maximum pressure before you progress through load development. Also understand that you'll never replicate loading manuals or QuickBook load data perfectly in any particular gun. So never go straight to maximum book value load when you're starting out. Besides, it's unwise to overlook some of the lower velocity nodes because those might be your best loads. Now, on the other hand, if I were to just change primers, brass, or if I were to open up a new lot of powder, for an existing load, I'll usually go down about maybe 3% and then retest the load from there and adjust as needed. But I really like the 10% rule for a good starting place if you're developing a brand new load from scratch. And our next question is from Lana. Lana wrote, I saw your chucker hunting video on YouTube and thought it was amazing. I have a young Griffon and she's about to be finished in July. I would love to hunt her in the area I saw in your video. Can you give me some direction that would be good for chucker? It'll be my first season on wild chucker with my own dog and we are excited. Well, congratulations on the dog, Lana, and you picked a good one too. Unfortunately, I don't give out specific spots for hunting, and very few hunters do, but I can point you to areas where most people start chucker hunting. The Tembler range towards the Carrizo have some chucker in them. The El Paso Mountains and Red Mountain area also have chucker, and the hills around Ridgecrest have scattered pockets of chucker. But the areas I just mentioned to you do get hunting pressure. So it's best to find your own honey holes in these areas by putting in the work and doing a lot of hiking. If you have a 4x4 like a Jeep, it makes getting closer to the bottom of the hills, a little bit easier. So maybe you have to hike a little bit less, but chucker hunting's tough no matter how you slice it. I recommend that you download the Onyx Hunting app, identify guzzler and spring locations on volcanic rock hills, and start hiking. That's how I found my spots. If a place has water, volcanic rock, sheetgrass, and it looks impossible to climb, it's a good candidate for chucker hunting. But honestly, with this drought and record series of heat waves we've been having, I have to wonder how many chucker are still alive right now. But enjoy that Griffon. Those are fantastic dogs. If you get a chance, watch my pheasant hunting video where I hunt with a couple of Griffons in Lone Pine. I absolutely love those dogs. And our next question is from Ron. Ron wrote, I am writing to see if you know of any manufacturers who make rifles chambered in 458 Lott that don't cost $8,000 to $9,000 like a new Blaser. You did say that it is gaining popularity over the 458 Winchester, but from my rifle research, that is not the case. Well, Ron, the American market for the 458 Lott was being solely propped up by the huge amounts of rifles that CZ was pumping out in the 550 line. I posted a CZ 550 video last year and told everybody to get a 550 in their favorite Safari cartridge ASAP because they were disappearing quickly. Within 3 months of posting that video, a used CZ 550 and 458 Lott on Gunbroker went from about $700 to over $2,000. So it still is easy to find 458 Lotts online, used ones. I've been eyeing a couple of nice custom Winchesters in 458 Lott on Gunbroker for under $3,000. I don't know if I'm going to buy them or not. There's a lot of custom Safari rifles on Guns International in the $5,000 range too, but those are fully custom rifles, by the way. but a simple Google search, and they're pretty easy to find. As far as its popularity in Africa, on the African continent, the pHs aren't really affected by the end of the CZ550. Many of them buy their 458 Lott rifles from a South African company called Musgrave, which turns out great controlled round feed safari rifles that the local pHs just love. I mean, we really need an American distributor for those Musgrave rifles. And our next question is from Zach. Zach wrote, I was wondering if you would consider doing a load development episode specifically for the Partition bullet. I'm shooting a 7mm Rem mag with a 9.5 twist, 160 grain Partition, 8 thousandths off the lands at 2,930 feet per second, and having lots of trouble getting good groups. I know you are a big fan of the Partition, and I'd sure love some tips on how to get the best accuracy out of them. Well, I actually find that the Partitions are relatively easy to get accurate loads from in my experience. I think your load development process is what's lacking here. Specifically, you don't seem to have a load development process. You know, you need to do some kind of optimal charge weight test first to find velocity nodes for your powder and component combination. Then you need to do seating depth tests to find an accuracy node. You know, most of my loads with Partitions end up closer to like 20 thousandths off the lands. But you know, hell, your powder might not even like the primer that you're using. So that's also a variable. But you can't just throw a random powder charge in a case, seat a bullet wherever, and expect an accurate load. It doesn't work like that. There's no shortcuts to getting good loads. It takes time and materials, and you need to follow a process. The whole point of my reloading videos weren't to give you load data. It was to show you the process that I use. The process is more important than the bullet that you're trying to load. And our next question is from Matt in Kentucky. Matt wrote, can you please post more videos with Swamp Doggy? I hunt with a group of 5 guys, and we all watched that video. Now, we run around all day saying Swamp Doggy quotes. 2 of my buddies even bought some Pit Viper sunglasses and tell everybody that they can see Jesus with those things. And when the mosquitoes come out, it's all about Swamp Doggy quotes. That video was a masterpiece of comedy. Please let your cousin make more videos, please. Okay, Matt, you're one of the many people who are demanding more Swamp Doggy. I have no idea why, but I just don't think I can trust him to do another video. You know, it also disturbs me that so many of you have become Swamp Doggy fans. But, I mean, you never know. My cousin has a history of showing up in places uninvited where he isn't welcome. You know, now that cousin Bobby and him have access to my YouTube channel, my YouTube account, you know, who knows what he might do. And our next question is from Alan in Scottsdale, Arizona. Alan wrote, it seems like most precision shooters like burger bullets. So this is where I run into questions. Standard seating dies can damage the VLDs. Berger recommends a Redding micrometer adjusted seating stem. Redding, Foster, and Hornady all seem to have similar dies, but selecting one is like walking into a candy shop. What do you recommend? What do you use? Of course, I want the ability to seat other bullets, like Partitions and the TTSX, with the same die for different applications. Well, all 3 dies that you mentioned are pretty good in my experience. I regularly use all 3 brands, and I've never had a bad die. So, in my opinion, though, Forster dies are probably the best of the bunch. They make fantastic dies. Just get the VLD style stem for whatever die you use, and use that for all your bullets. I have dies that I use, I have dies that I use for VLDs, TTSXs, partitions, and AccuBonds, all with the same VLD stem installed in the die. And I've never had a problem. As long as the seating stem hits the ogive of the bullet without touching the tip, you'll be fine. A set of Forster dies with a VLD stem will last you a lifetime and handle any bullet that you choose to load. Our next question is from the Belt family in Germany. The Belts asked, I'd love to see you do a video on 33 calibers like you did for 7mm. I have 3 different 33s. I have the 338 Federal, 338 Win Mag, and 338 Rum. I would love to hear your thoughts on all of the different chambers of the 33s. We look forward to hearing from you. My family and I are currently stationed in Germany, so all I have to do is watch guys like you. I've reloaded my entire life, so you actually have the same train of thought as I do when it comes to gun selection and bullet construction. Well, thank you to the Belt family for reaching out to me from Germany. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of the 338 Federal or the 338 Rum. As you saw in my 338 Win Mag video, I tend to question the practicality of any of the 33s really. Also, I really don't like reviewing cartridges that I haven't personally used and loaded for to some extent. I actually get my ideas for cartridge videos when I'm out shooting a gun or hunting or loading a cartridge or helping somebody else out with their gun. And that cartridge either gets me interested in doing a video because I'm excited or I'm a little bit underwhelmed by the cartridge. But that's basically how I get my cartridge ideas for videos. And I want to thank you for the letter. And, I hope everything's going good for you in Germany. I know there's a lot of flooding and catastrophic weather over there right now. So, the people of Germany are in all of our thoughts and prayers here in the United States. And our next question is from Paul in the UK. Paul wrote, Hi, Desert Dog. From time to time, I get scratches on case necks, which I believe are caused by a buildup of brass particles in the sizing die. When this occurs, I clean out the die using a bronze brush attached to a manual hand drill. Have you any tips on how to prevent the issue or carry out the cleaning process? Well, Paul, there could be various causes for this, for what you're experiencing. Normally, this happens to people who don't properly tumble and clean their brass, then completely wipe the cases down with a rag before lubricating and sizing. Tumbling not only cleans the brass, but it also smooths out any rough spots on the brass. The second reason this can happen is that you might have debris inside the die body. You need to consider that there's a possibility at least that your bronze brush you've been using with a manual drill is leaving debris or pieces of brass wire inside your die. I never use a brush in my die for that reason. Brushes tend to deposit materials inside the die. I always clean out my sizing dies with solvent on a clean mop and some Q-tips before I use them. I basically clean out my dies with a shotgun mop and Q-tips with solvent. And lastly, you might just have a crappy die. I've seen factory dies with nasty burrs and machine marks in them that would score or leave lines on my brass. And, I've also seen Lee dies that weren't made to proper specs and would completely mangle brass. So there's also, a small possibility that you might have a bad die. So, I'd make sure that I was tumbling and wiping down my brass. Then I'd stop using a brass brush and clean your dies with a mop. And then lastly, if that doesn't work, your die would be suspect. Our next question is from Kenneth. Kenneth asked, I want to thank you for all of the excellent information you provide to the hunting and shooting world. I have always been especially interested in hunting in Africa. I am asking your recommendations on how to go about this as far as, well, basically everything. That's a question that would take me days to answer. But the basics are establish a budget, first of all. This includes tips and opportunities for additional animals and side trips to national parks in different areas. So the first thing you would need to do is establish a budget for all of this. Then you need to establish what type of hunt you want to do. You need to research and decide on an outfitter. You need to coordinate travel, the type of travel you want to do and the days you want to travel on. You need to put down your deposit and make the official travel arrangements, book your flights. You need to acquire the gear that you need. You need to acquire the paperwork that you need. You need to plan how you want your trophies handled after your hunt. Yeah, you got to do that before the hunt. You need to practice shooting off the sticks, and basically get yourself mentally prepared for what you're going to experience. And my biggest piece of advice is to plan on spending more money than you planned on spending. And our next question is from Jake in Kansas. Jake asked, can you please give us a tour of Swamp Doggy's trailer? Another Swamp Doggy question. Definitely not. I don't want to risk getting infectious diseases or be subjected to drug raids by the DEA. Just the smells and stains alone would be enough to overwhelm the average man's senses. So why would anybody want to experience that? Our next question is from Larry from Reno, Nevada. Larry wrote, as a longtime subscriber, I was so happy when I saw your 338 Win Mag video pop up because I was literally one day away from buying one here at Sportsman's Warehouse for an elk rifle. But to my surprise, your video actually turned me off of the 338 Win Mag. There was a part of that video where you talked about the medium bore calibers may not be necessary. So I sat down with my reloading app and started running numbers comparing my current 300 Winchester Short Magnum against the 338 Win Mag. To my surprise, the 300 mag that I already own shoots flatter, hits just as hard, and has less recoil than the 338 Win Mag. I felt stupid for not realizing that earlier. Most people probably scan through your videos without realizing the wealth of hidden information you put into them. I sometimes have to watch your videos 4 or 5 times to absorb all the details. Thank you for doing these videos and for challenging people to think. Well, thank you for the compliments, Larry. No matter how attached I feel to a cartridge, I try to be objective and logical in my commentary on cartridges. As you found out, 99% of us are going to be shooting at animals under 300 yards, and we tend to overthink what's needed to do that. We tend to punish ourselves by enduring way more recoil, muzzle blasts, and powder expenses than we need to. Randy Newberg is one of the top elk hunters in the country, in my opinion. And he uses his lowly 308 to do all the work because he enjoys trudging through the backcountry for 5 days with a light and easy to shoot rifle. The 30-06 has undoubtedly taken more elk than probably all the other cartridges combined. And nobody feels undergunned with their 30-06. elk just aren't as tough as a lot of people think. I mean, they're tougher than a deer, but they're not as tough as people think, especially compared to, something like a moose or a brown bear. The elk won't know the difference between your 300 Winchester short magnum and your 338 Win Mag, but you will. And our next question is from Mike from Bakersfield, California. Mike wrote, "Dude, I love the local flavor you bring to YouTube. Are you sure that Swamp Doggy doesn't live in Oildale? I love your channel content and your objective viewpoints on everything from calibers to politics. Have you ever considered guiding people?" Well, Swamp Doggy would definitely fit right in roaming the streets of Oildale. He was mad when he found out that Trout's closed. He met his first cousin and second wife there, which unfortunately are the same person. But no, I think I would hate being a hunting guide. I know lots of them. I'm friends with lots of them. And God bless them for dealing with the people and landowners that they put up with on a regular basis. I just don't possess that kind of patience. Hunting guide, no. Fishing guide, maybe. And our next question is from Mary from San Jose, California. Mary stated, "A friend of mine sent me a link to your video titled Hunting Ethics, and it intrigued me. Just to put it out there, so you don't need to make assumptions, I am anti-hunting. I'm not a vegan, nor am I delusional about where our food comes from. I just don't think wildlife should be exploited, trashed, and destroyed. But I am open-minded to logical arguments that are counter to my beliefs. I've debated pro-hunting people many times, even at my local college, and none of them could make a coherent argument for hunting. Specifically, why they hunt and kill wild animals. I hear the argument about hunting being conservation, but then go to national forest campgrounds during hunting season, and hunters leave trash and empty beer cans all over the place. Then when I hike on public land near a local lake, the ground is littered with shotgun shells. Then when I go out into the desert to hike, it's full of shot up appliances, broken bottles, and empty ammo boxes. It hardly looks like most hunters are conservationists to me. Like you said in another video you posted, believe your eyes, not your ears." You threw that one back at me. It's fitting. I watched that ethics video and several of your other videos out of curiosity, and I have to say that you are an impressive individual. I've never witnessed a hunter like you that holds the animal's welfare and the environment in such high regard. Even when your fellow hunters berate you, it seems like you don't back down from your principles. Honestly, what other hunter would ever show video of hunters abusing animals to prove that it happens? Back to the point. A hunter's only argument for hunting has always been the typical talking points about conservation, but nobody has ever explained to me why they hunt and kill animals. Hunters often backtrack and evade that issue, but you attacked it head on with logical clarity. I will admit, the way you tied in hunting with our connectivity to nature and linked it with our ancestral past was masterful and compelling. I've always been appalled by hunters keeping trophies on their walls, but you put that into context in a way that actually made me reconsider my position. In retrospect, perhaps it's not the act of hunting that I hate, but rather the hunters that disrespect the animals and the environment. If all hunters acted and believed as you do, I don't think I would be anti-hunting at all. Unfortunately, I also believe that you are the exception rather than the rule. Wow. That's a powerful letter, Mary. And I want to thank you for your honesty, Mary, in both your compliments and your criticisms. I love your openness to a logical dialogue. Very few people are capable of that in today's polarized society. Hopefully I can address your concerns about hunters that you've personally seen disrespecting the environment? And I also want to tell you that the litter that you see hunters and shooters leaving behind is a valid point. And I see the same thing here locally and get just as outraged as you about it. You know, you fired my own line back at me. Believe your eyes, not your ears. And but I'm going to stand by that and argue that what you're seeing in California is just a microcosm of the greater hunting world. You know, Californians in general, whether they're hunters, hikers, families out on a camping trip, people enjoying the beach, or city dwellers having a birthday party in the park, Californians are part of a culture of disrespect. You know, Californians as a group, not every single person, but as a group, completely lack common decency and respect on a level just not seen in most states. You know, when you drive through Mexico and continue up the 5 through California, the piles of litter on the sides of the road never end until you get to Oregon. What I'm basically saying is that hunters that leave trash in the mountains are no different than the people that trash our beaches every weekend, or the metric tons of trash left in our parks every Easter. You know, and you can't even blame it on city life, because you could drive through cities like Miami and Nashville without seeing trash piles or spray painted walls everywhere. But every major city in California is full of litter and everything is vandalized. You know, Californians have a culture of just being absolute pigs, and everyone here turns a blind eye to it, just like they do with crime, corruption, and our failed education system. You know, you're quick to rightfully scold hunters when you see empty shells on the ground near a local lake, but you completely turn a blind eye to all the filth around you. I mean, here's a montage of your home, San Jose, California. And the main problem with this is egocentric political polarization. You know, when you see litter from shooters, it really offends you because it represents a group of people that you're politically opposed to. But when you walk through your own city and see the filth, vandalism, and crime, it tends to get ignored because you're politically aligned with the people doing those things. I've been to every state in the United States, Mary, for the exception of the New England states, which I hope to visit one day. And California is a completely different animal. You know, if you hike around Montana, Wyoming, or Idaho, you won't see the things that upset you. And as a result, people that align politically with you in those states are less prone to be anti-hunting. You know, I've seen Native American rock art vandalized with spray paint and historic monuments destroyed in the state by people. They just don't care. You know, I have pictures of the aftermath of a Sierra Club hiking trip through Nightmare Gulch in the Red Rock Canyon area years ago. And the Sierra Club camped about halfway into the canyon, and they just left trash behind all over the damn place. So, you know, even our environmentalists are pigs in this state. You know, I'm telling you, it's a cultural problem that isn't confined to one group of people. You know, in my mind, a good indicator of how disrespectful a local population is is to view their public restrooms. Seriously, compare a public restroom in San Jose, California to a public restroom in Vancouver, British Columbia. Public restrooms should be the litmus test that every place is judged by. And damn, what a long-winded answer. I mean, feels like I've rambled on for an hour trying to answer this question. So I'm sure I'm going to have to go back and cut and edit out probably most of my commentary on this question. But what I'm basically trying to tell you, Mary, is please don't vilify all hunters based on our California culture. I guarantee you that I'm the rule rather than the exception when it comes to hunters being good stewards of the land. I also want to state that most anti-hunters that contact me shower me with a diatribe of hate speech, threats, and four-letter words without a hint of reason. And I want to thank you for reaching out to my channel with an opposing point of view that was articulated in a logical and respectful manner. Thank you, Mary. And yeah, hunters need to be reminded from time to time that we need to speak up about those in our own ranks that disrespect wildlife and the environment. And our next question is from Chet from Texas. Chet wrote, I watched your latest video about hunting pants. Your comments about not buying expensive gear made in China really got me thinking, especially the part about slave labor and ICBMs being pointed at us by that country. I went to my closet and looked at my First Light hunting pants, and yep, you were right, made in China. I followed the link you put up for Forloh clothing that is 100% USA made. I ordered a base layer shirt from the site, and it was at my door in 3 days, and the quality is amazing. Can't wait for you to do a full review on their clothing. Thank you for the recommendation and for reminding us about the big picture when we spend our hard-earned dollars. Well, thanks for the compliment, Chet. I'm also pretty impressed so far with Forloh's stuff. And, like I stated in that video, I have to wait for the weather to turn before I can start field testing the Forloh gear. I'll start bringing it, I'll start by bringing it with me to on my trip to Alaska in September, then work it through deer and upland season from there. But I'll give you a sneak peek at some of the gear right now. And this is their all-clima soft shell jacket. And it's just an awesome piece of quality gear that even has a Reco device sewn into it, so it's easy to rescue you if something bad happens out in the mountains. Just like this thing is just loaded with features. I can't wait to try it out and review it for you. And I just love it so far. I love the weight. I love the quality. I love everything about it. But, I got to actually take it out and see if it keeps me warm in the cold, see if it keeps me dry in the rain. So I got to put it through that. And this is what they call their deep space base layer. And this is something totally different than what you're used to seeing in hunting gear. And I think this one's going to really surprise a lot of hunters. And these are my all-clima stretch pants. And as you can see, they do have hip zips on them, knee pads in them. I mean, these are a full-featured pant. And, I really can't wait to test these out this upcoming hunting season. But be mindful that when you order this stuff, it does run slightly smaller than the Sitka gear, and you may need to upsize, especially if you're kind of an in-between size, Maybe if you're an exact 38 waist, maybe you need to go up a little bit more. If you're teetering on the edge between large and extra large in jackets, it'd probably be best to bump up to that extra large. But, expect a full review of Forloh hunting gear later on this year. And our next question is from Backwoods Joe. Backwoods Joe wrote, Desert Dog, I know you are an authority on the great old 30-06. Have you seen the recent video of the guy hitting a target at over 3,000 yards with the 30-06? What are your thoughts? Before I start, I love your name, Backwoods Joe. Maybe I'll just call you Backwoods. Well, Backwoods, I did see that video when it was posted. I think it was posted maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, I don't know. And I thought it was an awesome video. In 2009, Corporal Craig Harrison broke the all-time sniper distance record with a 2,700-yard confirmed kill. It took him 10 shots to finally hit his target. And subsequent sniping records took multiple shots to get on target. And, those were with 50 caliber rifles. So the fact that the guy in that video made a hit on center steel at 3,025 yards with only 4 shots is absolutely amazing in its own right. But he did it with the lowly 30-06 and did it in the wind. And in that video, I believe he was shooting a 230 grain burger at something like 2,650 feet per second, which is just incredible for the 30-06. And even more fascinating is that he used a standard 1 in 10 twist barrel to do it, which just proves that everything about the whole 30-06 as a package was just perfection from the start. I think he used one of those Euro or Australian powders. I think it was AR 2225, which is the same as our Rotumbo powder here in the United States. So he worked up those loads with a really slow powder to push those 230 grain burgers. And maybe it was just me, but the way those hits left dimples on that plate and moved that big steel plate around, it looked like when I shoot steel with my 45, but those bullets were hitting at almost 2 miles. That was some great shooting with just an amazing load. So I found that video very fascinating. And our next question is from Frank from Orlando, Florida. Frank wrote, Hello, Desert Dog. A couple of your videos this year got me motivated to set up a fishing trip to the beautiful areas that you fish. I have plans to fly to Montana and drive a rental car through that state and into Yellowstone on a fishing adventure. I want to travel light. I'll be both wade fishing and I hired a couple of drift boats. I have room for 2 rods. What weight rods do you recommend? Well, a 5-weight rod will do anything you want to do in that area. It won't be undergunned on a 5-pound brownie, and you won't feel overgunned on an 8-inch cutthroat. So to tell you the truth, I'd actually take 2 5-weights. I almost always take 2 5-weights on drift boats, and I have one set up for dries and the other set up for nymphs or a hopper dropper. You'll mostly fish nymph rigs or droppers, then switch to dries during a hatch. So it's good to have rods set up for both. Also, if you break the tip on one of your 5-weights, you still have a backup rod that's just as useful. Some people are going to recommend that you take a 5 and a 6-weight, but I've really never found the need for a 6-weight, unless you plan to throw some heavy streamers. But if not, 2 5-weights are great. And our next question is from Troy from New Mexico. Troy wrote, Greetings from New Mexico. I saw in the comments on one of your videos where you said that you're testing out the hammer bullets. Please make a video on those because everything online right now about those bullets is trash from long-range shooters that think ELDs are great hunting bullets. It seems that real hunters who've actually used them to kill animals love them, and the range jockeys hate them even though they never shot an animal with them. There's also a guy who killed thousands of pigs with his hammer bullets, but I think he might be sponsored by Hammer, so his opinion might not be reliable. The videos from Hammer bullets give no real info, so we need some reliable feedback about these bullets. So I hope you're the guy to give it to the hunting world. Yeah, I saw a guy online talking about the Hammer bullets after you sent me this letter, who tried to convince people that if an animal takes a few steps after being shot and doesn't go bang flop immediately, that's probably bullet failure. He even tried to reason that if an animal goes down immediately but moves a little bit on the ground, that the bullet failed. I think it was also telling hunters to use Hornady match bullets for hunting. It's kind of hard for me personally to take somebody like that seriously, but he has the right to speak his own personal truth. A lot of long-range shooters on YouTube are what we call jello junkies. They like to shoot bullets like the VLD into gel and marvel at how much the gel block wiggles in slow motion, compared to other bullets. And they happily regurgitate the gospel of hydrostatic shock, not realizing how overrated hydrostatic shock and shooting into gel really is. It took me about a year of shooting into gel blocks on my old YouTube channel to realize the fallacy of the gel block. But don't get me wrong, there is no absolutes here, and there is some value to shooting into gel. Repeated shots into gel with the same bullet will give you a good indication of its reliability and consistency at certain velocities. If you remember my VLD versus LRX video on my old channel, the LRX bullet expanded perfectly and drove deep and straight every time at 100 yards. But the VLD was just all over the damn place, at 100 yards. Sometimes it would just blow up after a few inches of penetration. Sometimes you'd get a good mushroom on that and some good penetration. And, other times they didn't expand at all and they'd turn into like little bananas that would tumble around in the gel. So there is some value to gel tests, just not as much as most people think. And I do understand why the long-range hunting crowd hates copper bullets in general. It's because they don't perform good at low velocities, and the heavier bullets don't stabilize well in most barrels because of their length. And, long-range shooters favor those heavy high BC bullets. I was a great F-class shooter and really enjoyed challenging myself in that hobby, but when I hunt, it's all about the challenge of stalking close and making an ethical kill. And the copper bullets do that without excessive meat damage and without filling my mills up with chunks of lead. And, I've never lost an animal with a copper bullet, so it seems like pure upsides to me. But in that same train of thought, I can't do a full review on the Hammer bullets yet because I haven't killed any animals with them yet. I'll try to put some meat in the freezer with them this fall and do some post-kill autopsies for you on those animals. I'll also put together some gel blocks so I can give you guys some good data on the reliability of these bullets. And I will be comparing these bullets to Barnes, as I've been totally satisfied with the Barnes bullets. So it'll probably be a Hammer Hunter versus TTSX video of some sort. So, I've worked up some great loads in 25-06 and in 35 Whalen with the Hammer Hunters. That company really supports the quarter bore shooters. which is awesome because the quarter bores rock. They have all kinds of weights and different types of bullets in the 257 caliber, and I applaud them for going that route. I mean, you won't find a bigger proponent of the quarter bores than me. But what I can tell you so far about the Hammer Hunter bullets is that they're the easiest bullets to work up loads for that I think I've ever used. And that's in contrast to the cutting edge bullets, which were the hardest bullets to find loads for that I've ever used. So the ease of reloading with these was a pleasant surprise to me. With a lot of the loads I tried on this, it was actually hard to find a bad load. And I mean, I was shooting these 25 caliber bullets out of that same stock $700 Browning X-Bolt that I bought, that I did my X-Bolt review on. I used that same rifle in 25-06. And I mean, I was getting groups like this during load development. I mean, just amazing. That's at 100 yards, by the way. So I'm impressed with the accuracy of these so far. The only cons I've found so far with these bullets is the price. I mean, they're about double what the Barnes are. And the fact that these Hammer Hunter bullets are incredibly long for caliber. So you really have to go down in bullet weight to stabilize these bullets properly. For instance, the first batch of bullets I ordered to do load development in 25-06 were the 110 grain Hammer Hunters. And with that standard 1 in 10 twist barrel in that X-Bolt, I found that those bullets didn't really stabilize well. But then when I went down to the 92 grain Hammer Hunters, these bullets stabilize and perform awesome. So, remember, an unstable bullet won't expand or penetrate as predictably as a stable bullet will because of yawing. So regardless of what the internet commandos tell you, twist rate does have an effect on the terminal performance of a bullet. That gun that I shot in this test, it'll stabilize a 115 grain Partition, but I have to drop down to a 92 grain bullet with the Hammer Hunters. What I can tell you with certainty is that the quality control at Hammer bullets is amazing. Way better than Berger. But none of that really matters if they end up blowing up on impact with the shoulder of an elk, or, they don't do enough tissue damage for an ethical kill. So expect an unbiased review on the Hammer Hunters later this year. Good or bad, I won't pull any punches on that review. And our next question is from Brad. Brad wrote, "Hey Desert Dog, I thoroughly enjoyed your info on all things shooting sports. It's always a reliable learning source and good reminders of learnt skills and past mistakes. Perhaps you could do a video on quality rifle scopes. I see a lot of Leupold scopes on your rifles. I'm sure I know the reasons you run those, but it would be great to hear you explain. Cheers and good hunting." Well, Brad, thank you for enjoying my channel and for the compliment. I run Leupold on most of my hunting rifles because they're American made. They have the best and fastest customer service in America. The quality is great. And in my opinion, the value is excellent. The VX5 and VX6 line of hunting scopes are just tailor-made for hunters with a durable, lightweight, and low-profile design that makes carry and use really easy out in the field. And that HD glass punches way above the price point, in my opinion, too. And I just love Leupold's reticles. And, I'm obviously not the only one that thinks this way. because most guides that I encounter in North America, Africa, New Zealand, and Australia, they run Leupold scopes too. Well, that's all the mail for July 2021. Before I end this video, I want to share some hunting and fishing memes sent to me by fans of the channel, so enjoy that. Well, that concludes another edition of Hunt Camp Mail. I also want to thank Carlos, Bob, and Kevin for your kind words and well wishes. You can reach me with any questions or comments at desertdogoutdoors@gmail.com. As always, thanks for watching and good hunting.